Few experiences in my life have been as dreadful and anxiety-riddled as dealing with the German immigration system. I would rather get freaking arterial surgery again than go back to the Aüslanderamt, or foreigner's office. But to be fair, them's was some good drugs I got. But if you want to live in Germany, it's kind of a necessary evil. Like listening to your coworker talk about how their weekend was. Sure, I care. So in this video I'm going to share with you my immigration experience to Germany, starting from the very beginning when I had to go to Chicago, the German consulate in Chicago, to get my visa or Aufenthaltstitel, then a few years later when I got my blue card, all the way up to last year when I finally got my Niederlassungserlaubnis or permanent residency. But stick around for the end of the video and I'll give a little update on German citizenship. That swell white whale I've been chasing. Alright, first up, the visa or Aufenthaltstitel. For that, we had to take all of the documents, all the requirements, and go to Chicago, the German consulate in Chicago, for an appointment. And here's where we learned early on that a running theme throughout the German immigration experience would be that it all comes down to the person who's sitting across from you. It truly doesn't matter if you follow all the rules and guidelines they give you. If the person sitting across from you says, "Nein, heute nicht," then you're kind of screwed. In the case of the Chicago consulate, this person was able to decide whether my wife got the same exact visa that I was going to get, if she was going to have a language requirement attached to her visa, as in she would have to learn a certain level of German within a certain period of time in order to continue her residency, or maybe they give my wife a visa that explicitly says she cannot work in Germany. Fortunately, my wife got the same visa I got, the Aufenthaltstitel, but not without first getting challenged on our marriage certificate. She kept looking at it and saying, "This doesn't look fancy enough." We explained, "Doch, that is our real marriage certificate. I don't know what to tell you, this is how they make them." But she truly just wasn't having it. "It's not like we haven't seen a marriage certificate from Cuyahoga County before." To this day, I haven't a clue as to what kind of scam she thought we were trying to pull off. "Here's the guy, see? You and I, we're gonna apply for jobs overseas in Europe, see? And it's gonna be in Germany, see? And if one of us gets the job, see? We're gonna start the intense process, see? Of uprooting our entire lives and moving it overseas, see? But here's the kicker. When we go to the German consulate in Chicago, we're going to give them a fake marriage certificate. It'll be a grand old hunky-dory time. She'll never know the difference. It's not like she works for one of the most intensely bureaucratic organizations ever devised by mankind." Anyways, after we kept insisting that, yes, this is in fact our real marriage certificate, she went away, spoke with someone, came back, and said it's fine. That, by the way, is also a running theme in the story of German immigration. Some official challenging you on the authenticity of whatever document you're presenting, only to go behind some closed door, come back, and then render a verdict on whether or not they believe you. What a system. But in the end, I got my Aufenthaltstitel, and that meant that I was tied to my job for a certain amount of months before I could look for another job elsewhere. Once I got my next job, my salary increased, putting me within the threshold for the blue card. Generally speaking, the blue card allows you to change jobs as you like and live in Germany indefinitely. Bonus points for me, it also gives spouses the same work privileges as a national of that country. So believe me when I say it's a huge relief from the simmering stress about whether or not your visa is suddenly gonna get denied. My brain would always cut to a John Cena type throwing me out of the country like a bouncer does a drunk. But it's never quite as simple as meeting the requirements and simply changing your residency. You have to gather a ridiculous amount of documents. None of it's digital. They can always ask you for something that's not on the listed requirements. In fact, my wife and I always had a thick blue folder we called our immigrant folder that we'd bring to every appointment just in case. And getting the appointment itself can be a hassle. And the fact that we were trying to get our blue card during the pandemic certainly didn't help our cause. Once we finally got an appointment, went in, everything ran mostly smoothly. Fortunately, we had a lawyer present because we did ask for some kind of written document that would allow us to leave Germany and come back before our blue card actually came in, which would take months itself. At first, the official said, "No, not gonna do it. You don't need it. Like, why would you actually need it?" And this is another thing. The officials sometimes they live in Germany. They're usually German citizens. They can't imagine why you would need to do something that they themselves don't need to do. We explained that, it's the pandemic, borders are closing, we have family, people get sick. What if we need to go there, take care of something, and then need to come back for our jobs? None of this really seemed to sway the gentleman in question until our lawyer basically stepped in and said, "They've done everything you've asked for them, they've been waiting for a long time, just do it." And he let out that kind of sigh that people give when they realize they don't have a good reason for not doing something, but they really don't want to do it anyway, but now they know they have to do it. And so he did it. Next up, the Niederlassungserlaubnis, or permanent residency. This is another one where you'll hear wildly different stories. In fact, a buddy of mine applied via email, as did I, and he got his appointment via email within like a few weeks, and his whole entire process was much shorter than mine. I, on the other hand, after I sent in my documents via email, I did get a response asking for something that I was apparently missing. I sent that in within a week or two, and then bupkis for months. I tried following up with the person who is listed as my caseworker. Nothing. Just nothing. Silence. I'm not kidding. Months later, I just got a letter in the mail saying this is when your appointment is. And that appointment was also months later. Here you have one person who was able to do everything digitally, and I got a letter in the mail telling me when to show up. So in the time between my applying for permanent residency, getting my appointment, and actually having the appointment, I switched jobs. This is important information for later. So I go in for my appointment in February, and it immediately takes a bad turn. The guy looked like Professor Honeydew from Sesame Street, and the comic book guy from The Simpsons had a kid, just to give you an image. He gave this kind of bureaucratic sigh that only German bureaucrats can give, that immediately translated to, "You did something wrong." He told me that I needed to be in my job for at least half a year before I could get permanent residency. And for those who don't know, the first 6 months of most German jobs is called a Probate Site, or probationary period. And I did later find out that yes, you do have to be out of your Probate Site in order to get permanent residency. But the thing is, that was not listed on the requirements on the website, all about everything that you need to compile in order to get permanent residency. When I pointed out that this was not included in the public list of requirements for permanent residency, he literally told me that, well, they can't post all of the requirements, there's simply too many considerations. Of course I get frustrated. He tells me it's not a big deal, for him, because I still have my glue card, alles gut. And again, this is the disconnect between you, the immigrant, and the person sitting across from you, because they just don't understand the anxiety that comes with being an immigrant and dealing with the most bureaucratic institution that's ever been created by mankind, where anyone who just so happens to be sitting across from you can decide your fate. To them, it truly is no big deal to keep you waiting. Of course, I'm thinking about everything that can go wrong. We were still in the middle of the pandemic. Russia just invaded Ukraine. I paid my taxes, jumped through all the bureaucratic hoops. I want what I've earned. He didn't particularly like that I stuck up for myself, and things actually got a little heated until he finally scheduled me for a follow-up appointment in June, which still would have been during my Probate Site, so that didn't entirely make sense either. Of course, none of that particularly mattered because as quickly as I got that last job, I lost it and started a new job 1 month before my June appointment. I tried contacting them in advance to see if I should even bother coming in because I'd still be in Probate Site. Again, no response. So I knew I'd be wrong if I didn't go in for my appointment, mein Termin, and I also knew I'd be wrong to show up for this appointment and still be in Probate Site. Between the two, I decided that going in was the least offensive to their bureaucratic sensibilities. So I go in, and this time I bring my wife with me as a kind of plan B, because there is something in the rules that says you can combine your income with your partner to qualify. Thankfully, I've got a different caseworker this time, more of a gentle giant type. Except he immediately asks what my wife is doing there, and I explain our flimsy plan B situation, and he immediately shot that down. Apparently it only applies when the partner is German, something that also wasn't listed on the rules, but as we've already learned, why do we need to post all of the rules? There's so many different things to consider. We couldn't possibly do that. Of course, it doesn't take this guy very long to figure out that I am again on Probate Site. He kind of sighed and gave me a hard time about changing jobs again. I tried to explain that I tried to contact them to see if I should bother coming, and he literally put his hand up as if to say, silence. Sticking up for yourself in front of authority is clearly a big no-no in Germany. Just ask history. After that, he collects some papers and steps away to another room, kind of like the woman did in Chicago with our marriage certificates. It felt like a small eternity went by when he finally came back and just went, alles gut. I was as stunned as I'd ever been. I may have given Melanie minor fractures in her hand from squeezing so hard. We kind of just sat there for a while in disbelief as he typed away on his computer like a gate agent at the airport on Adderall. Seriously, what are they typing? Nothing takes that long to type. There is no name that long. Eventually, he handed me some things to sign and gave me the greatest blessing I've ever received in my life. He told me I never have to come back to the Aüslanderamt again. So where does this all leave me? I have EU permanent residency, which gives me the right to live and work pretty much anywhere in the European Union. But I still can't vote, like the other 25% or so immigrants who live in Berlin. Seriously, there's an absurd amount of disenfranchised people living here. So the next step is citizenship, assuming the new reforms pass that allow dual citizenship. But it's already a backlogged excrement show. I still haven't gotten the results back from the citizenship test I took back in January. And all it was a 33-question multiple choice exam, the kind of test that they just instantly ran through a scanner when I was a kid in the 90s. That's right, Dale R. Rice Elementary School is more efficient than Germany. Not that any of that matters, because it's currently impossible to start the process of applying for citizenship in my district while the city completes construction on a new centralized immigration center. I can only cry laughing at how long this is gonna take. The powers that be are already estimating 18 to 24 months. And even then, once again, it all comes down to whoever is handling your case and sitting across from you. Just the other day, this story came out where a caseworker asked a Palestinian woman for her position on the Israel-Palestine conflict before deciding on her citizenship. That's terrible. Fortunately, ich weiß, dass mein zukünftiger Sachbearbeiter eine freundliche, einfühlsame Seele ist, die niemals eine unmoralische, wirkliche Entscheidung treffen würde. Now, after all of that, you're probably wondering, why the hell do I put up with Germany? So click up here to see why I do believe Germany is the best place to move to in Europe, or check out this playlist of some of my travels throughout Germany. Bis nachher, Sachbearbeiter!